All right, today we are going to look at the method of markers, which is another discrete fair division scheme. Remember, discrete means that the items cannot be divided. And the good thing about this one is it does not require the players to put up any of their own money. So you do not have to have cash to play this game or to use this method. But the downside is that you need a lot more items than you have players. So frequently these examples will use a bunch of candy. So think about a group of kids going trick-or-treating. They all collect candy, they come back home, they dump out the candy on the floor and try to sort through and divide it up based on what type of candy the kids like. That's the kind of situation we're looking at here. So we are going to have an array of items, and we need to be able to divide those into segments so that each of the segments has equal value to the player, and each player will divide them up differently. So here are our main steps for the method of markers. First is bidding. So we are going to start by putting all of the items in a row or an array, and each player will independently divide the array into n segments. Remember, n is the number of players. And each player wants to do this so that the segments represent a fair share of the set of items. And you do this by laying down markers to show where you are dividing the row of objects. Now, the thing is that each player does this in secret, so no one knows how another player is dividing up the items. The second method is, or the second step in this method is the allocation. So you start on the left, and when you come to the first marker, you give whoever's marker that is everything to the left of that marker. That is their fair share. They are done. They're out of the game. Then you're going to pick up all of the rest of that player's markers and move them out of the way. Then you continue. When you get to the first of the second set of markers, the next player gets everything between their first and second marker, and you continue. Then you will probably have leftovers. So to decide what you do with the leftovers, you could do a lottery, flip coins, use another method, or if there are a lot of items left over, you could use the method of markers again. Now, this method works when there are a large number of similarly valued items. So for example, a lot of candy. It would be challenging if you had a set of items like 50 pieces of candy and an iPhone, because it would be really hard to divide those up into 4 equal shares or even 2 equal shares because the iPhone's value is so much greater than the candy. So again, most of our examples will have to do with candy. So let's start here. We have 4 friends, Dorothy, Rose, Blanche, and Sophia, who went trick-or-treating. And then when they got home, they dumped out all of their candy into one big pile, and they're trying to divide up all of the candy. So for the first step, for bidding, they put out all of the items in a random order. Okay, so you can see we have our 20 pieces of candy here. Now, each player is going to place a marker to divide up the candy into what they believe are 4 equal sections. So you can see here the red arrows are rows. So looking at Rose's markers, she has this section, 1 through 4, this section, 5 through 8, this section 9 through 15, and then this section 16 through 20. And in her opinion, those 4 sections are worth an equal amount, which means that probably these candy bars in the first 2 sections, because they're a little smaller, are worth more to her than the candy in this 3rd section because there are a lot of items in that section. Okay, so then each of the friends do this same thing where they are dividing up this row of candy into 4 equally valued sections. So looking at B, the blue markers, those are Blanche's markers. So again, 1 through 6, 7 through 9, 10 through 14, and 15 through 20, those 4 sections are equally valued to Blanche. All right, so once each of the players has put down their markers and we know where each person would divide this line of candy, then we start with the allocation. So we are going to start on the left, and when we come to the first marker, we do our first allocation. So Rose's marker was the first one, so Rose is going to get everything in her first section. So from 1 to 4. All right, so then Rose is done. We take away all of her other markers. She has her pieces of candy. She's done. Then we continue. We are looking for all of the markers with a subscript of 2 now. So when we come to the first marker with a subscript of 2, that is Blanche. That means Blanche gets everything between her first and second markers. Then we remove all of Blanche's markers. She has her pieces of candy. She's done. Then we continue to the 3 markers. So we're left with Dorothy and Sophia. And we actually find out that they have their markers at the same spot. So we flip a coin. Dorothy wins the coin flip, so Dorothy gets that allocation between her second and third markers. Then Sophia gets everything from her last marker all the way to the end. So if you go back, there were 4 pieces of candy, pieces 5, 6, 10, and 11, that were not accounted for. So we can take those leftovers and then use another method to distribute them. We could flip coins. We could use some other sort of random selection. We could use the method of sealed bids to determine who gets those extra pieces of candy, but the method of markers is done. So let's go through and do another example all the way from the beginning. So we have 3 children, A, B, and C, who are dividing up 13 pieces of candy. They've decided to use the method of markers. So we have our row of 13 pieces of candy. Our children, A, B, and C, have placed their markers. So child A thinks that 1 through 4, 5 through 9, 10 through 13 are all equally valued. Child B thinks that 1 through 3, 4 through 8, and 9 through 13 are equally valued. And child C thinks 1 through 4, 5 through 7, and 8 through 13 are equally valued. So now that we have our bids, we're going to go through and do our allotment. So we start on the left, and we stop at the first marker we come to, which is B's marker. So I'm going to go ahead and give child B that first group of candy. So child B gets 1, 2, and 3. Now, I'm going to remove B's markers from the array. So now I am looking for the first of the 2 markers. So I'm going to continue here from piece of candy 4. So I'm looking for the first marker with a subscript of 2, which is here. It's C2. So C is going to get everything from their first marker to their second marker, which is pieces 5, 6, and 7. Now, child A is going to get everything from their last marker all the way to the end, which is 10, 11, 12, and 13. And the other pieces of candy that have not been claimed are our leftovers. So that is piece 4 and pieces 8 and 9. So this is the method of markers. These children could then use another method to divide up the leftover pieces of candy.